Okay, so this was another one of those early drawings from, again, just starting this channel, and it was, again, just, in all honesty, I think this one speaks for itself. You know, the lettering, just in case you can't see it, it says, "Peace and safety, not sudden destruction." And the idea is that, this idea of, again, just anyone who saw that footage at that time, it was just so horrible, okay? And the idea that it was an accident, that it wasn't planned, I mean, I don't know what was in that officer's mind. I can't speak to that, but just looking at that, it was just very shocking. And those first few days when I did check out the YouTube channels, and just the outrage that was expressed by people of many races, white people, black people, you know, I mean, Asians, Latinos, it just stunned people, because you got to see what it was that has been talked about in the Latino and the African community. I mean, Hebrews who have been just traumatized in fashion like this for decades, and the world at large finally got to see it, okay? And so again, just this young man, helpless, on his back, cuffed, and two people stand over him who are supposed to be, you know, public servants, who are supposed to be offering peace and safety, and yet you get sudden destruction. And in the amount of time, that quick second that it takes to pull the trigger, you have a child who's going to be raised without a father. You've got the empty vacuum that his mother, that his girlfriend, that his uncle, that his cousins, that his friends are all going to have to deal with in just that quick instant. And so this was my attempt at trying to just express feelings around that, as to, you know, what we as a community, and I don't mean just the Hebrew community, I mean just the non-law enforcement community, those of us who are dependent upon law enforcement officials to protect us, you know, to keep the peace. That's what we want. We don't want destruction. And yet, as recent as the individual, I saw a video that Kazuki Saray did, where the police officers killed this guy who turned out he was deaf, who was walking down the street with a knife and a piece of wood. Turns out he's a wood carver. The police officer just shot and killed him. And the individual here in Oakland, again, who was running from the police officers in fear for his life, and they shot him in the back and killed him. I mean, this was not too long ago. But again, just another one of those early drawings. Okay, so again, this is for sale. The original drawing. It's this is pastel and charcoal on paper. It's I'm gonna price this one at probably about $50, but the prints, postcards, it's all going to be comparable. So again, and you can mix and match them. So that's really it. I do have one more painting of Blue Rotten Fruit, which I kind of need to explain, but I am going to sell that one also. So hold on just a second. Okay, this is a rotten pear. And let me tell you, I spent hours working on this bad boy. This is oil on canvas. It's unstretched. And it is, the dimensions of this are, we're talking 36 by 40. It is very large, and it's very colorful. It's very beautiful. I used a palette that Wayne Thiebaud used a lot. Anyone who's familiar with him, he was the artist who painted a lot of pastries, you know, the cookies, the pies, the ice cream sundaes. But I used that palette, that color palette. And the reason I was doing this is that this is a way just to study texture and to study color. When you paint fresh fruit, your color palette's going to be limited. If you paint a green apple or a red apple, there's only so far that you're going to go, because it's green, okay? You're not going to get that much, you're not going to get very far. You're not going to need to use a lot of other colors. I mean, yes, you can justify maybe, you know, throw in a dab of violet, throw in some warm violets or magentas and such, but you can't justify it. But with a rotten fruit, oh my gosh, rotten fruit, anyone who's ever seen it, I mean, hey, it starts to turn blue, it starts to turn green, you get purples in there, you get all these beautiful pinks in there, and the texture is just incredible. So that's really why I did this. Nothing more, nothing less. I just wanted to explore color. Just wanted to explore texture. And so that's really what it is. So again, this one, the painting for this one is, I'm selling this one, the painting, for at least $200 or $300. But again, I really don't want to sell it. But the prints are going to be comparable. This is, make a nice, if you've got that kind of offbeat taste or offbeat sense of humor, and someone says, look, what are you doing with a piece of rotten fruit? You can say, hey, it's rotten, but it's not rotten to the core. Okay? And again, on a t-shirt, on a nice, postcard, or 5x7, just put on your, your bulletin board or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But anyways, that's it. So these are 4 more drawings, or 4 more items for the fundraiser. Please, I encourage everyone to buy something for yourself, for a friend or a family member, and if not, then please just donate. I am desperate. This is a way for me to actually sell my work, and that way I'm not just out and out groveling and begging. You do get something for your money, and you'll definitely be helping out an artist. You'll my manager will appreciate you, I will appreciate you. Please, okay? And pass this video along to your friends also. Okay, this is Rebel Frak. Okay, this is not an old one. This is actually a fairly recent piece that I did. It is, the quote that you're reading is from a book called Black Liberation Theology. It was written by James H. Cone. James H. Cone is a theologian who was very heavily involved in the Black liberation movement in the 60s and 70s, and he wrote this book in 1970. And his idea was to try and find a way to bridge the civil rights or the Black liberation movement, to find a bridge between that movement and Christianity. And so what he talks about in that book is how so-called Black Americans can view, quote-unquote, Jesus as a empathizer because of his life. Anyone who's familiar with the Bible, specifically the New Testament and those first 4 books, knows that the Messiah, that he was born very poor, in a very low and humble position, that he worked and conducted his ministry amongst the poor and the downtrodden, and that because Cone was basically saying that because the situation for the majority of Black Americans is similar to that we can find a common ground that way. And so it's a very powerful book, and I've been reading through it, and I read that sentence and I was just, wow. I mean, it kind of caught me by surprise, I gotta tell you that, because he is a product of what we would consider just mainstream Christian theological studies. And he writes about that, how he would have problems with the European or the, American theologians because of his approach, because, they kind of don't want to ever touch on that, that those passages where the Messiah talks against rich people, where he says, for example, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into the kingdom. Okay, just that he ruffled more than a few feathers, but I think that sentence, okay, writing that one, I think that is surprising and as shocking as it is now in 2011. Just imagine what it must have been like to have read that or written that in 1970, okay, or 1968. And the other reason I like that sentence is because he does in that sentence what I strive to do with art, you know, in terms of when I want to use art as political or social commentary, as a way to kind of like jar people, to startle people, to shock them, you know, to get them thinking, you know, to stimulate, you know, get the synapses firing and stimulate some type of dialogue. And he did that with this one sentence, okay? And so I had this kind of image in mind when I was reading that, and as I was thinking about that and just, you know, reading through different chapters in that book. So I just did it. This is the figure actually, that's supposed to be Jesus, obviously, but as you can tell, he's been kind of battered there, okay, by the black masses there with the chain and the torch and the clubs. And I drew the face of quote unquote Jesus in graphite, but the figures in the front, well, the whole thing was graphite, but then I just through Adobe, I just, you know, filled in the background and everything. But anyways, this is another one that I'm selling, you know, as part of this fundraiser. Again, this, you know, I'm sure you can obviously tell that would make an excellent poster, excellent postcard. If you dare to be bold, you could put it on a t-shirt, you know. You send me the money, leave me a message, you know, in my inbox, deposit the money into the PayPal account and tell me how you want it. If you want this on a t-shirt, or if you want it, you know, on a coffee mug or whatever, you know, I'll do it. Hey. Hey, if he had the, you know, the wherewithal to, you know, to pen that sentence and make that observation in 1970, hey, you know. But anyway, so this is the last one in this series. But again, I just encourage you to please show some support for an artist, for a fellow YouTuber, and yeah, I would definitely appreciate it. And you'll get some good artwork from it. You will definitely be satisfied. Okay, this is Rebel Frak.